Hello YouTube, I would like to welcome all of you to the very first ever video of my brand new channel entitled LatinShinigami. And if any of you are wondering what this channel will be main focus will be on, this will be a YouTube channel where we talk and where we talk about everything and all things Bleach related. So I apologize to any of you Death Note fans who might have been excited that this would be a channel focusing on that particular series. And just a little disclaimer, I have a very bad stuttering problem, so please just bear with me. So, some of you might be wondering, why would somebody be making a Bleach discussion channel this so late into the game? Well, a few reasons. Firstly, I have always wanted. This is something I have always wanted to do, long before now. But for personal reasons, I never had the time, space, or equipment to do this. And honestly, I still don't. As of recording this video, I'm actually inside my boyfriend's bedroom, and he's helping me get my channel off the ground. But my main reason for wanting to do this is that, well, growing up, being a fan of Bleach, and even now as I'm in my late 20s, I've always found it very difficult to be able to talk about Bleach in length among my friends, or with anybody really in real life. Either they change the subject or tend to put down Bleach, despite knowing pretty much everything that I know and following the series from beginning to end, at least as far as the manga and anime is concerned. So I figured if I had any hope of discussing Bleach as in length and in detail as I wanted, it might as well be here on the internet. Well, so there it is. Cause for me, Bleach has always been the number one series that has been closest to my heart more than any other series. Even during the golden age of Shonen Jump, where we had contenders like Naruto, One Piece, and even some more of the old-fashioned animes like Dragon Ball, Yu Yu Hakusho. But Bleach always hit differently for me. Something about it just had me hooked on it more than any of those others, as much as of those other series I mentioned, despite the fact that I'm a big fan of all of them. And I don't really expect this channel to become as big as some of the other big Bleach talkers on YouTube, like Mr. Tomo, Tagging, or Simone Unahara, just to name a couple. But as for me, as long as I can find a decent number of people to actually discuss Bleach in length and have a platform where I can rant about all the different aspects of this beloved series as much as I want, I don't care how big or small this channel ends up becoming. So let's start. So I want to start off my discussion of Bleach with its main protagonist, Ichigo Kurosaki. Ichigo as a protagonist, for me, I realized pretty early on that he was different compared to some of other shonen manga's protagonists. Even during the golden age of Shonen Jump, he was different from Naruto and Luffy for quite a few reasons. The first, when we're at the beginning of the story, he started off the same way a good number of us here in the real world started off as just an ordinary high school kid. Nothing really special about him other than the fact that he was able to see spirits. But apart from that, his life was about the same as any other high school kid. Went to school, had a couple of friends, had a very interesting dynamic with his family. He was also for a good for a good chunk of the series, a punk kid liked to get into fights a lot. Apart from being able to see spirits, bruh, everything was completely normal up until he met the other main protagonist of our story, Rukia Kuchiki. Because unlike the other two members of the Big Three, Ichigo wasn't immediately aware of the bigger picture surrounding his universe. It wasn't until he met Rukia that he discovered the world of Shinigami, Hollows, and then later learning about the Quincy's and etc. etc. What was different about Ichigo compared to the other two is that even after learning just how big his universe really was, he never had a proper set goal directly tied to that wider picture. After becoming a substitute Shinigami, he was completely content with staying in the position that he was, occasionally going into spirit form, fighting off hollows, invading or any other evil beings that invaded Karakura town. But he never tried to officially join the Soul Reapers ranks, becoming a member of the Gotei 13, becoming head captain, or ruling over them. No, he was completely fine staying a substitute, but also living a relatively normal life, as normal as going around and occasionally slaying hollows can be. He still wanted to graduate from high school, going off to college, eventually getting together and marrying Orihime and starting a family of his own, and with his own career, as we learn later on that he became a translator, which I actually found that quite funny, considering that throughout most of the story he had problem pronouncing foreign names, and that was just one of the many different aspects of Bleach that always tied me, that always kept me wanting more. Even after the manga originally ended, I still wanted more. I went out of my way to read the light novels, either on the internet or purchasing any of the ones that got an English translation here in the US, not to mention the data books. Japan recently got the newest light novel, Don't Bleach My Fists, and I am very excited to get my hands on that the first chance that I get. For all the bits of information I found I was able to grasp from social media, because it sounds very interesting. Another thing that was different from Bleach compared to other shonen series is that the other main protagonist, but also main organization of the universe of Bleach, which is, as we all know, the Shinigami and the Gotei 13. Unlike in Naruto or in One Piece. After the end of Shippuden, after Naruto became Hokage, and after the war ended, the shinobi world was slowly but surely starting to move in a different direction, and hopefully a better direction in order to make up for all the endless war and fighting from its past. And in One Piece, even though it hasn't happened yet, I think it's pretty clear at this point that the cruel world government will eventually have to come down, and how the world will function after that, well, we'll just have to wait to see until the story is over. For Bleach, though, that is never really the case. After coming into contact with our main protagonist, the leaders of the Gotei 13 became, in Rukia's words, more flexible than they used to be, but at their core, they're still a morally gray organization. because because the Shinigami's number one priority is keeping the balance intact and maintaining the status quo of the universe, making sure the three worlds stay separate. Because unfortunately they have to. The three worlds have to stay separated. The balance cannot be disrupted. There has to be a Soul King maintaining the separation of the three worlds. Because if there's not, then that has very serious negative repercussions for the entire universe of Bleach. And nobody embodies that more than one of the most ancient characters in the story, Ichibei Hyosube, a character who has been around since before the splitting of the three worlds, who sees the bigger picture more than any other character in the story, because he was there at the very beginning. He saw what the world was like before Adnias was decapitated and put into that state of suspended animation. And he alongside many other main prominent characters of the story are willing to go as far as needs be to maintain that status quo, even if it means imprisoning our main protagonists to replace the Soul King if they had no other choice. Luckily for Ichigo, Yhwach made himself into a perfect substitute, so it didn't go that far. But it's not just Ichibei who is willing to go that far. Other characters like Shunsui Kyoraku and Kisuke Urahara, who were perfectly aware of what Ichibei was planning, weren't happy about that potential outcome, but at the same time they would not go as far as to try to persuade Ichibei or get in his way from doing so. As much as they liked Ichigo, and would definitely be saddened if that were to happen to him, if push came to shove, they would go as far as well, because they also understand that maintaining the status quo is most important. Many characters throughout Bleach that aren't part of the main cast are either inherently evil in many different aspects. Evil isn't really a word I would like to throw isn't a word that you should really throw around so lightly, but in Bleach it's more prominent than most. There's like the Gotei 13's founder, Shigekuni Genryusa Yamamoto, who and Yachiru Unohana, and the other 11 members of the original Gotei 13, who were nothing more than a game of ruthless thugs and murderers. The Gotei 13 was founded on a foundation of blood and corpses, and who were court guards in name only. Over the next 1,000 years, Yamamoto, alongside Unohana, decided to make them better from what they initially were. Yamamoto eventually founded the Reijutsu Academy, and the structure of the Gotei 13 is what it is today. Mainly thanks to him. And as for Unohana, who eventually decided to put her sword down and decided to focus her Kaido abilities into running Squad 4 and become a healer instead of a fighter, did their best to make up for the sins of their past. But unfortunately for them, they could never truly escape what they were. Because at the very end of their lives, they had no choice but to revert back to the ruthlessness that characters that they used to be. it isn't just those two where you can see these shades of gray within the soul society. Mm. Another example would be is that they're willing to enlist dangerous characters and give them a high position of authority simply for the fear of them turning against the Soul Reapers, and would rather have them by their side. Two prominent characters among the Shinigami is Kenpachi Zaraki and Mayuri Kuratsuchi. Kenpachi Zaraki's is simple because even when he was just a young boy, his monstrous strength was so imminent that Unohana herself recognized it and declared that even when he was just a young boy, he was the stronger of the two. Be the only man who took up the mantle of Kenpachi after her that she acknowledged, despite the fact that there were 10 Kenpachis that came along after her. But there you go. And his monstrous strength was so feared that the Central 46 feared it so much that they instructed Genryu Sai to halt his training on Zanjutsu because they feared his strength growing much further, until the 1,000-Year Blood War, where Kyoraku was able to put Central 46 in their place and continue his training, which makes him the monster he currently is right now. And as for Mayuri Kuratsuchi, that's straightforward too, but also a little bit more complicated. Mayuri was brought into the Gotei thanks to Kisuke Urahara immediately after his promotion to being the captain of Squad 12, and soon after started founding the R&D department. And the Soul Reapers have a prison which they call the Maggot's Nest, which they imprison potential dangerous characters, even if they have that could prove to be a great threat to the Soul Society, even if they have done nothing wrong, not broken any laws. Some of you might be wondering, why not just put them to death? Because despite how fearful the Soul Society is of these prisoners, they also always see the potential in using those abilities later for the good of the Soul Society. Mayuri in particular was so dangerous that he had a cell completely separate from the other inmates that he wasn't even allowed to leave. It was Kisuke who convinced him to leave, with the promise of him inevitably taking over the R&D department and being named captain if something were to ever happen to him, whether he died or was exiled from the Soul Society, which ended up happening. Mayuri is easily one of the most evil captains the Soul Society has ever produced. And he has stayed that way throughout the entirety throughout the story of Bleach. Sure, at the very beginning, when we reached the Soul Society arc, that was when we saw him at his most raw and uncut. After the Soul Society, he tended to mellow out a little bit, but that innate madness and his endless thirst to quell his curiosity has stayed completely intact. All right, now I would like to talk about how Bleach has influenced me personally, and also everyone and everything around the world. So, here's one thing Bleach has always had among the other two members of the Big Three that most people I know don't tend to give it enough credit, was its level of influence around other popular series that came along right after them. Like I'll name two now. Black Clover. If any of you are familiar with that, it's easy to see why. But also JJK. Out of the big three, Bleach, it can easily be said to be among those three series. Bleach can easily say to have the most influence, especially in anime in today's times. And for me personally, throughout the original anime's runtime, it had a lot. Despite it had a lot more comic relief almost in throughout every single episode, and also mostly interesting filler arcs that I actually found very entertaining. Even during its earliest episodes where Studio Pierrot's animation didn't hold up to the manga's art detail, I still found it enjoyable. I never get tired of rewatching those scenes. Not just the action scene itself, but also the slight comic relief that was almost in every single episode, even during serious situations. And going back to the filler aspects for a minute, I actually enjoyed a good majority of the filler arcs in general. The only filler arc that I never enjoyed, that I didn't like rewatching, was the Bound arc. Apologies for anybody who did like the Bound arc, but I personally never saw the point of it. The other filler arcs I loved, like the new Captain filler arc, the Ray guy arc was my second favorite. I actually liked that. Mainly because for me it felt like a fan fiction dream scenario where we can actually see two characters we always wished to see could fight actually got into it. My favorite fight from that particular filler arc was the fight between Byakuya and Reigai Toshiro, because two captains that get more screen time more than any other, that also spam Bankai more than any of the other captains. It was like a dream scenario, seeing which of those two would come out on top. But my most absolute favorite out of all the filler arcs was the Zanpakuto Rebellion arc. Because watching the Zanpakuto Rebellion arc and going back and rereading the Thousand Year Blood War manga, and also watching the anime, also you can see quite a few similarities between them losing their Bankai and them losing the ability to use Bankai after the Zanpakuto start rebelling. But also the Zanpakuto Rebellion arc had two canon aspects that people tend to overlook. The first one is the Zanpakuto spirits of Katen Kyokatsu, which actually did make it into the canon story during Shunsui's fight with Lilia Barrow. But also we finally got to see the Toshiro's backstory animated within that filler arc, where he met Rangiku, discovered his latent abilities, with Hyorin Maru. That's definitely one of my personal favorites. Even though Toshiro's like a side character, he's the captain that gets more focused more than any other captain, and he's also the most popular captain of all of the captains in Bleach, and it's kind of obvious to see why. There are so many different factions of Tite Kubo's most popular work that I never got tired of. I rewatch at least a couple episodes every single day, whether I'm at home, go on my way to work, and I have it. I play a couple videos on my phone, or I go on YouTube and go back and see old clips from Illustrated Guide to Soul Reapers. Those were always fun. And even though it took a long time for the anime to come back, those 12 years of waiting were were completely exhausting. I still had the manga that of the Thousand Year Blood War to keep me to keep me entertained, and just kept imagining what those scenes would be like once they finally did get animated. And I gotta say, after that long await, Studio Pierrot did not disappoint. If anything, they completely exceeded my expectations. Not just with the animation itself, but also new scenes and information that they added, some unnecessary stuff that they cut, but also changes to things that in the manga that didn't really make sense, or were simply because Kubo was dealing with his health issues at the time. He didn't get to make particular scenes and panels that how he would have liked, because he was on a deadline. I've been going on for quite some time now. No, and one of the final things I would like to talk about is what I'm hoping to see from the final part of the Thousand Year Blood War anime. As of recording this video, there's less than 20 days until the first 3 episodes of Core 4: The Calamity comes here to the US in theaters, which is exciting, and earlier than its actual streaming release date, which I'm honestly very excited for, because I never had the opportunity growing up as a kid to see any of the Bleach movies when they hit theater. So this feels like the universe's way of making it up to me for missing all those other chances in the past. And apologies to any to all the other people around the world that aren't able to get to see the early release, that because you're not in the US. I feel so bad for you, and I understand your rage. All right, there are many things that I am hoping to see from this final core of Bleach. I was hoping that we would get at least 1 extra episode or 2 like we had with Core 3, but unfortunately it's only going to be 13 episodes like Cores 1 and 2. From the trailers we got, we do know that the battle between Hashwall and Uryu is not only going to be very different from what we saw in the manga, is going to be held with properly, but there are other things that I would also like to see. During the final battle with Gerard Valkyrie, first it's going to be the Vizard's turn to step up. All of them are now in the Royal Palace. They have their hollow mask on. Clearly they're going to go all out. How that fight will go down, we'll just have to wait and see. Because the hollow mask for the Vizards was, apart from Mashiro, was completely absent in the original manga, and I hope that's at least addressed in this final arc. I doubt it, but I would like a proper explanation as to why they didn't use it beforehand. There's also the fight between Yhwach, Ichigo, and Orihime before Yhwach makes his way back down to the Soul Society and being confronted by Aizen. Although that fight is definitely going to be one of the most anticipated for the entire Bleach community. From the trailer, we saw that there is going to be an extension of sorts. What I really hope doesn't come to pass is that it's just a continuation of his fight with his Shikai before going into the Horn of Salvation, and then activating Bankai, only for it to, I'm sorry, I snapped too early, only for it to immediately get cut in half. Like, I actually want a proper demonstration of Ichigo's true Bankai in action before it inevitably snaps in two. We know it's gonna happen, but but I actually would like to see what Ichigo with now at his absolute strongest can do with Tensa Sangetsu. And also there's that anticipation of a brand new character that wasn't in the original manga. Many of us are speculating for it to be Tokunada. Well, and honestly, I'd hope that's the case, because if Tokunada gets revealed, then that leaves further speculation for Can't For Your Own World to happen. Now talking about the light novels, obviously, no real significant aspects besides maybe Tokunada will appear within Core 4, but will any other scenes from previous light novels be added before the 10-year time skip in between Yuhaba's defeat, and we see our main characters all grown up and have reached adulthood? Me personally, I would actually like to see the weddings between Rukia, Renji, and Ichigo and Orihime just before they have both of their children. Like, if I had to put money on any scenes from any of the light novels appearing in between the time skip, though, that would probably be the one I put money on the most. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. So now to close this out, if you made it to this far into the video, thank you so much for listening to me to go on my little tangent. If there's anybody out there who would like to discuss Bleach in further length with me, and if you actually want to see more videos of me just talking about this beloved series that have touched so many of us all over the world, please feel free, and hopefully hitting that subscribe button. I will do my absolute best to put out to make any videos in the future if the community wants it. Obviously, since I'm just starting off, it won't be so frequent, but once I get further established, I am determined to keep bringing you Bleach content like this whenever I find the time. Thank you, and good night.